Hello and welcome to another adventure here on my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the quest for the perfect rainbow palette and the palette I found at the end of the rainbow. That wasn't as clever as it sounded in my head. Anyway, if you like playing with makeup and talking about the beauty community / industry just as much as I do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you'll be notified of all future content. So this all started when I was asleep and I was having this dream, probably one of the most normal dreams I've ever had because usually my dreams are really freaking weird, but I was having this dream that I was in Ulta and I came across this beautiful, gorgeous, perfect rainbow palette, and I was talking to the lady at the store and just being like, this is perfect, this is amazing, I've got to buy this, like this is wonderful. And then when I woke up, I couldn't remember what the palette looked like. I couldn't remember if this was a real palette, if this was just something my brain made up, and now I'm pretty sure it's just a palette my brain made up, but I still really don't remember why I loved it so much, what was so beautiful about it, but it got me thinking, is there a perfect rainbow palette? So that's what began my quest, and I have looked at so many rainbow palettes. High-end, drugstore, indie makeup, like across the board. I looked at Ulta, I looked at Sephora, I looked on Amazon, I just Googled rainbow palettes, I looked on YouTube, I looked at top rainbow palettes videos, my favorite rainbow palettes videos, the worst rainbow palettes videos, just palette collection videos to try to find rainbow palettes. In those videos, I have seen more rainbows during the 3 days I was searching for the perfect rainbow palette than I did at Pride. Like, I have seen so many rainbow palettes and I didn't really know what I was looking for. It was just kind of a, I'll know it when I see it situation. But as I went, I did realize that palettes were getting kicked out of the running for very similar reasons. So that did lead me to creating some criteria. And then whenever I found a palette that I thought that might be the one, I added it to a Pinterest board. And then I would go back and I would look at reviews and I would really try to study that palette and figure out, is this the perfect rainbow palette? So in this video, I'm gonna go over my criteria and then I'm gonna be ranking all of the finalist palettes and counting down to the one. The perfect rainbow palette for me. I do think I found it. I did buy it because I didn't have a ton of colorful shadows to do rainbow looks with. So I did buy it and I will be giving you a review and telling you all about why I am sure I found, at least for me, the perfect rainbow palette. So let's talk about my criteria and why palettes were kicked off and not put as a finalist for the running of the perfect rainbow palette. First, they had to have all of the Roy G. Biv colors. There are a lot of colorful palettes out there, but I wanted a true rainbow palette. And to be a rainbow palette, you have to have all the colors of the rainbow. So any colorful palettes that didn't have everything were kicked out of the running. Second, they had to have a good mix of mattes and shimmers. I realized pretty early on I did not want an all matte rainbow palette. As much as I love my mattes and do want a perfect rainbow palette to be matte heavy, it can't have just all mattes because I want to be able to do full colorful looks, and I do like having the option to have a shimmer on the lid without having to reach into a new palette. Also, I just don't have a ton of colorful shimmers either, so I wanted a good balance of mattes and shimmers in the palette. It had to have good packaging and a good price point. I didn't want to find the perfect rainbow palette and it be like $100, some Natasha Denona palette. Also, I wanted it to have nice packaging. I wanted it to be perfect in more ways than just the color story. I want the whole experience of the palette to be perfect and not break the bank. And then it had to have a good formula. Now, obviously I didn't go out and buy all these palettes and test them, but I would watch a ton of reviews and make sure that any palette I dubbed the perfect rainbow palette would have at least a good, solid formula. It didn't have to be the most amazing formula ever in the world, but it has to be a good formula. And then finally, it had to have an appealing layout. I saw several palettes that I was like, it's beautiful, the color story checks all the boxes, it's affordable, etc. It checks all the rest of the boxes, but I just don't like it. For some reason, the layout just was not appealing, not inspiring, and if the layout is not inspiring, then I'm not going to use it. So those are my criteria. All of the palettes on the finalist list do check all of these boxes, but there is something else that makes them not quite perfect to me. So in last place of the finalists, it's still an honor to be on this list, I'm just gonna scooch over a bit, is the BH Cosmetics Take Me to Ibiza palette. This is beautiful. It does hit all of the Roy G. Biv colors, even though I'm kind of giving it a pass with the green because it kind of has like a yellowy, murky green, but I do see some green representation. So it hits all the colors, beautiful packaging. I think the theme is really fun. BH Cosmetics does have, from what I've heard, a really good formula, so I was interested in this palette. But unfortunately, this is a grungy rainbow palette, not a true rainbow palette. And what I was looking for was a true, bright rainbow palette. So because this is such a grungy color story, it was kicked out of the running. It is my favorite rainbow palette from BH Cosmetics. I think it's beautiful and like I might be interested in trying it one day, but it just didn't live up to what I was looking for this specific project, this specific criteria. And then in second to last place of the finalists is the Moira Sweet Paradise Eye and Face Palette. This is really pretty. I really thought this was going to be a stronger contender than it was because Julia Mazzucato really likes the Moira formula and I've heard really good things about it and they are on my list of brands to try, and this is a really pretty palette. It does have all of the Roy G. Biv shades and it is a solid palette. I don't mind the highlighters on the side. I like this, but I don't love this. Like, it just doesn't have that extra oomph. It doesn't have that extra pizzazz. It doesn't have that extra spice that would make the true perfect rainbow palette. So I like this and I can't particularly say exactly why it's so low on the list or why it is not the perfect rainbow palette. It's just one of those, I know it's not. Next is the UCANBE Fruit Pie Filling Palette. It may not look like a true rainbow palette on first glance, but it does have all of the Roy G. Biv shades. I love the theming. I think the fruit pie filling is super cute. I really like this palette. I've been really interested in trying UCANBE for some reason, mostly because I've wanted to try this palette. This palette has been on my wish list for a long time, and I'll be honest, it was the front runner in this competition for a long time. It is beautiful. I love it. I'm very excited and tempted by this palette. It's also only $12.99, so good price. I'm interested in the formula. I really like the color story, but as far as the perfect rainbow palette, it is not, because the proportion of the colors is just not quite right for a true rainbow palette. If I was looking for the perfect colorful palette, this probably would have been an even stronger contender, but because it really leans on those pinks and purple tones, I mean, it only has one orange, one yellow, two greens, two blues, one, I would say, true red shade that I'm just like, the proportions are off. In a perfect rainbow palette, I want a good even spread of all the colors of the rainbow, not for one color to really dominate like in this palette. But I do really like this palette and it is still on my wish list. It just can't be ranked any higher in my quest for the perfect rainbow palette. Next is an indie palette. It is the Chakra palette by Bruja Beauty. I think this is such a beautiful palette. I think the theming is cute. I really like the proportion of each color. I like that it has a true rainbow and then some kind of secondary, just tweaked a little bit type shades in this palette. And I really thought for a while this was going to be the winner. I'm kind of saying that for all of these palettes, but there's a reason these are my finalists, because at one point I thought each of these could really be the winner and the perfect rainbow palette. So this one, I think it's beautiful. I love the layout. I think the packaging's cute, just simple and white and pretty. However, I was watching a review of this and they said that on the website, they saw that some of the shades were meant to be semi-sheer and some of them were meant to be sheer and only some of them were meant to be opaque. Now on the website, I could not find that myself, but knowing that that information is out there, knowing that some of these shades may not perform how I would want them to, and that's how they're designed to perform, knocked this palette out of the running for the perfect rainbow palette for me. Because while I understand not everyone wants full pigment all the time, even I like not full pigment all the time. Like, I'm okay with having to build a little bit if the shadow is easy to work with and blends well. I don't want to buy a rainbow palette where some of the colors are meant to be sheer and semi-sheer, because if I am going for a rainbow palette, I am going for an intense, bright look. I'm not going for just a wash of color. So while I think that could definitely work for a neutral palette and really having some of those shades be like, this is just for a nice wash of color type of formula, look, all that, I don't think that works for a rainbow palette, and that's what knocked this one out of the running. Next, in fourth place, is the Box of Crayons palette by the Crayon Case. Now, I've been very interested in the Crayon Case, and I have sort of been waiting for like the perfect launch from them, and then I saw this and I was like, I am on the hunt for the perfect rainbow palette, and they have this gorgeous rainbow palette. I love the theming. It is cute. It is fun. I like the layout. It's inspiring. Let me look up some reviews. And Jen Loves Reviews, who I already love here on YouTube, had 2 videos dedicated to this palette. I was like, awesome. I trust Jen. So I watched the first review and she gave it kind of a glowing review. She just said that the green in the corner wasn't the best, but I can live with knowing that one shade out of all of these is just okay when it's not even like one of the shades I'm really drawn to. I was fine with that being just like an okay shade as long as the rest were good, and she seemed to say that the rest were really good. But then in the second video, she talked about how the brand owner had treated her, and I did not like how she got treated at all. And I don't really want to support a brand that is going to treat influencers like that, or just treat anyone like that, really. I did not feel like they handled it professionally, and I just don't really want to give my money to a brand that is run like that and don't treat their customers well. So unfortunately, this probably would have been way higher on the list. This might have won. I might have stopped looking there, but I just can't support it. So I kept searching, and that was about the time that I posted on my Instagram stories, hey, I am on this quest for the perfect rainbow palette. Please recommend your favorite rainbow palettes to me. And I know I didn't respond to, I think, any of the comments. I'm sorry, I did look at them all, and I did look at some of your guys' suggestions, all the ones I hadn't already looked at. And one of you said, hey, check out Revolution Pro. And I was like, why did I not think to check Revolution for rainbow palettes? They have so many palettes. That was dumb. So thank you to the person who told me I should check Revolution. I am blanking on who it was, and I know I talk to you regularly, so I am so sorry, but thank you so much for your suggestion, because that led me to third place, the XX Revolution XXtravaganza shadow palette. This is the biggest palette on this finalist list, and if I was going to get one of these mega rainbow palettes, like these giant ones that just have so many of each color, this would have been the one. I really like this layout. I really like how it has some neutrals, how the shades go from light to dark. It's organized in a logical way, and pretty much any rainbow look I wanted, I could get out of this palette, or even a lot of neutral looks. And it's affordable because it's a Revolution brand. Even if it is their more higher end Revolution brand, it still wasn't too expensive, especially with how many shades. I liked the packaging. Like, I really liked this palette. So again, I went to look for reviews, and some of the reviews were really good, but also some of the reviews were not that great. And when I was trying to figure out why some people were having a good experience with this palette and others weren't, I noticed that people who used different techniques than I usually use seemed to give this palette a really good review. But then the people I saw using the techniques that I more typically go for tended to not like the palette and call it patchy. And my perfect rainbow palette is gonna work with the techniques that I want to use. So unfortunately, because of that, this was out of the running. I was really sad because I really thought, hey, I think that might be the one. I think this is the closest palette to what I saw in that dream, what my brain made up as the perfect rainbow palette. Maybe if I got this someday, I would love it and be like, this really is the perfect rainbow palette, but I'm not gonna spend my money for third place. But I kept looking on Revolution's website, and that's where I found second place, which is the Makeup Revolution Reloaded Euphoria palette. I saw this and I was like, that is the one. I am 100% certain that is it. That is beautiful. It has the right mix of mattes versus shimmers. It has all the Roy G. Biv shades. It's not too big. It has a black and it has a cream. I like the packaging. I think that packaging, even though it's a little bit cheap, it is pretty sleek looking. This has to be it. It's beautiful. I love it. I love the layout. I find it inspiring. It's attractive. Like, I was all about this palette, but it is Revolution, the most hit and miss brand ever. So I had to go find reviews and I could only find one, and she said, I can get it there. And the Perfect Rainbow palette is not an I can get it there formula. It's a good, solid, I like this formula. So I was so sad because I love this color story more than any of the other rainbow palettes I have shown you thus far. There's just something about this one that gets me. I really like it. I like that it's sleek, it's compact. I feel inspired to use this. I love that there is a silver and a gold and a black and a cream shade to kind of anchor the more colorful shades because I am a neutral lover. So this, to me, I was like, this is it. What could be better? But I kept looking, and not too long after, I found, again on Revolution's website, the Perfect Rainbow palette. I was not expecting the top 3 to come from the same brand at all, but hey, Revolution just makes rainbow palettes, I go for. But the Perfect Rainbow palette to me is the Revolution x Tammi Tropical Carnival Shadow Palette. This is, in my not so humble opinion after 3 days of research, the perfect rainbow palette. And I have used it a couple times now. I think I've used almost every shade in the palette. There might be 1 or 2 that I haven't yet, but I've used almost every shade in this palette, and I will go ahead and say, like, the quality is there. The only shade that I find I have to finagle a little bit is the yellow, unfortunately, and it's not like it won't blend or anything. I just have to build it up 2 or 3 times to really get it to the intensity I want. It's one shade that's I can get it there, and the rest is a really good, solid formula. And let me just tell you why this captured my heart and gets the crown as the perfect rainbow palette to me. First of all, I love this color selection. This is a true rainbow palette. I love Tammi. She is a wonderful YouTuber and Instagrammer who really does play with a lot of color, and I actually learned how to do colorful eyeshadow from her. I'll try to link the video down below where she shows how to do colorful eyeshadow for beginners, and she even uses this palette, and she set this palette up with beginners in mind. So you have all of the shimmers, and then you have the mattes, and they're set up to blend into each other. So if you don't know what color a shade would blend into well, you can just go right across. So like the yellow will blend into the orange, will blend into the red, will blend into the pink, will blend into this purple, will blend into this purple. So it's set up with beginners in mind. I watched her launch video, so I know how much thought she put into this palette, and she wanted to set it up not only so you could get a very rainbowy look from this palette, but you could also get a lot of monochromatic, more colorful looks. So you could do an orangey look, you can do a red look, you can do a green look, you can do a blue look, you can do a purple look, you can do a like yellow, and oh my gosh, the shade Calypso, oh, it's so freaking pretty. And these are meant to be more inner corner highlights because she is a woman of color. So the purple won't work as an inner corner highlight on me, but Calypso will, and this is a beautiful lid shade. I love that this will work for such a huge variety of skin tones because it was created by a woman of color specifically to work for her, but also obviously it works on very fair skin tones. So I love this. I think it is perfect. I love how accessible this is. I just ran to my local Ulta and picked it up. If you are in the UK, you can order from Revolution. It is accessible. It is meant for a wide variety of skin tones. I think it's beautiful. It's really inspiring to me. Like, I want to reach for these greeny blue shades and do a really ocean inspired look. And I want to reach for these yellow, orange, and red shades and do a really sunsetty look. And I want to experiment with some of these more monochromatic looks. And oh my goodness, I love the shade Calypso, and this shade right here, what's it called? Notting Hill. It's what I have all over my lid on this side. It's this beautiful, like, brass orangey shade. It is so stunning. I love that shade. There really isn't a shade in this palette that I don't like. I think this was just so well done. There is no wasted space. You do have all the shade names on the back of the palette as well as on this little plastic thing. So if you want to throw away this plastic thing, you still do have all the shade names. I love that it's inspired by her culture. I love the shade names. Like, A to Z, this palette is the perfect rainbow palette and it performs like it. I do wish the yellow was just a little bit better, but it is not the worst yellow I have ever used by far. It is a good yellow. It just needs to be built up a little bit. So if that's my only complaint about this palette, okay, I have one more complaint and I think it might just be mine, but this palette is a biatch to open. It ruined some press-on nails I had because it just bent them up because it is so difficult to open. But again, I think that might just be mine, but just be warned that you may run into a problem opening this palette, and it will open. It just, it's not always easy, but the color story is perfect. The formula is great across the board. I have fun working with this palette. It makes me want to reach for it and try more colorful looks, and I am so happy crowning this the perfect rainbow palette because to me it is. This is my perfect rainbow palette and I am so, so happy I bought this. And it's funny that this has been on the market for so long now, and this whole quest, I finally fall in love with such a beautiful palette. Like, how did I ever, because I'm sure I've seen this palette before, I know I have, but how did I ever not just instantly fall in love and want it? I don't know. But there we go. That is the quest for the perfect rainbow palette. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with me, if you think one of the other finalists should have won, or if I didn't mention a palette that to you is the perfect rainbow palette. Thank you so, so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.